Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Katie. I'm a full-time sketchbook artist and I've just come back from Portugal hosting my very first art retreat. So today's video is going to be a sketchbook tour of the art that I made whilst there, and I ran this with my friend TJ Marston, who is at Sketch It Studio on Instagram, and she came and I hosted her for a few days before and after. So there's also going to be a little bit of the UK in here as well, but I want to share it all in one go. The retreat was amazing. We had the most amazing students and we all really learned a lot from each other. It was very, very inspiring. We were hosted at Sofia in Monserrate, which is a beautiful area of Portugal, and you can definitely see the Portuguese vibes when we come to the Portugal pages. I'm going to put a few clips on screen, but I also shared daily recaps over on my Instagram, which I've saved to my stories. I'm hoping to run more retreats in the future, so keep your eye out on my Instagram if you're interested, or I probably will mention it here anyway. But I was just so inspired and I felt so grateful, and I found it a very rewarding experience teaching in person. So I am already looking at doing some smaller ones in the UK, but yeah, it was just incredible, and I'm really, really grateful for the students who were so open to our playful approach. That being said, let's dive into the sketchbook so I can show you everything that I created. Now, TJ came here on the 6th, so we started this on the 6th of May, and I did some work in it yesterday on the 19th of May. So I would say we're about a third of the way through. This is the Royal Talens Art Creation Sketchbook. They very kindly sent everyone a sketchbook for the retreat, so as you know, I talk about this sketchbook all the time. It's one of my favourites because it is so affordable and really easy to fill, because you don't feel scared. It's not daunting because of the size and also because of the paper. It does handle most of my mixed media really, really well, so I'm really happy that we took this, and a big thank you to Royal Talens for their support. Usually I do my sketchbook tours in two halves, but obviously we're about a third in this one. I just was really itching to show you the art that I created. So let's start at the beginning, which, as I said, wasn't in Portugal but was drawn with TJ here in the New Forest because I was hosting her and I wanted to just show her a little bit of what we have here on the south coast. So I did take her into the New Forest National Park and we went to the Boulderwood Sanctuary where there are lots of deer, and we were very lucky to see them on the day, and loads of them too. I very badly drew them here, but you'll see we did do some more deer drawing as well. But this was just really, really peaceful. We were very lucky with the weather here in the UK. It was very, very warm. So it meant that we could just draw outside as much as we wanted, which was lovely because obviously it often rains, but we were blessed with some sunshine. So we were just drawing in the forest. I used my brush pens here and some coloured pencils. And TJ also bought me a set of the Faber-Castell gelatos, the translucent set. I've got a video about gelatos on my channel already, but this is a different set, so I was excited to try those out. So you can see where I smudged those a little bit here, just for that softer texture. That's what those are. Then I also did this one. This was the same viewpoint, but shifted over to the left. Again, with my brush pens, I found those really easy to just pull out. And I added on some coloured pencils, some Neocolor. This is Neocolor, this is the saffron colour here. I absolutely love using these in my work. You'll probably see them in every single page, and they are one of my favourite supplies. Again, I've got a video all about Neocolor 2s on my channel, so I'll leave that up there. I tend to link a lot of things in my sketchbook tours and I run out of cards, but most of this has been unseen because this was created in Portugal, so some of it you might have seen on Instagram, some of it I haven't shared, so I'm excited to show you something new in this week's video. So yeah, pretty simple. I do like the difference in tone here. You'll notice I do that a lot in Portugal as well to show the background, so slightly cooler green and then warmer greens as we come into the foreground. It was Tree Month on Patreon last month, so it was nice to do this, and I really like the movement in the branches. Here were our deer studies, so I kept this super duper simple, which is something I don't often do, with just one coloured pencil. And the deer were quite far away, so they were hard to see, so some of them are very dodgy looking. This one definitely looks more like a goat. This one doesn't have a neck, but it was very fun anyway. Again, they were moving and they were very far away, so it was tricky. This was more in my comfort zone, doing the trees and the landscape in the background, but still really nice to do with TJ. And then I did this one, again just sat on a bench and looking forward. I'm going to put some pictures on screen as well of TJ's work so you can see the difference, because we do work very, very differently, even though we have the same sort of playful approach about having fun when we create. But I really love seeing the difference there, and this was done with brush pens, some gelatos, and lots of Neocolours on top. I don't think I put any coloured pencil on here. I did put down a sort of olivey green and I didn't like that colour, so I went on top with my light olive Neocolour, and I love how that looks. So really enjoyed sort of discovering that, of putting this on top and creating this sort of new shade. Feels really dense and rich. And yeah, just another tree, probably not as successful, but still really playful, and adding on I think this might be the silver Neocolour in the background, just to push this back a bit and again get that difference in tone. Then on May 7th we went to Winchester. I don't love this one, the composition isn't quite right, but again, just sat on a bench and drawing and using the gelatos, which really fun, really love this colour for the water. I wish I hadn't put this bit in, I think it's more successful like that. This angle isn't quite right, but this is quite a well-known view. I've definitely drawn Winchester City Mill before, but I've done it much bigger. So there are elements of this I like, again with brush pens and the gelatos. Definitely elements I don't like, but very useful to learn from. I also worked in another sketchbook. I took my Strathmore with me and did this one again in Winchester. This was at the Dean's Garden, using the gelatos and the coloured pencils. I really don't like this one. This is what it was like with this big sort of black chalkboard in front of the window, but I think that's quite distracting. I wish I'd just done a normal window. And it's okay, but it's nothing special. And I did take this to Portugal as well, so I will be popping back into this one later on. So yeah, not my favourite, but again, I'll put TJ's on screen as well so you can compare. Then this is the last one from the UK before the trip. So still in Winchester. I've never drawn on a high street. TJ is very not shy in terms of drawing weather, so sat down on the bench and drew the high street, which was really fun. It's much easier when you're with someone as well, I think, because you are just with them and you kind of forget about everything else. And I do find that happens with drawing anyway, so once I was just in my own little world. And I really like this. I kept things pretty simple in terms of colours, just using a few brush pens and then some light cobalt blue pencil for the sky, as well as a touch of the blue unison pastel that I borrowed from TJ, who'd just bought it in the art shop. So we had been to the art shop. You can see I bought a few supplies, not many, 3 watercolour pans and a pen. And I did draw our lunch, so we went to the Cornish bakery, so I just added that in. This was drawn on location on the 7th, but because there are a few gaps in my sketchbook, I filled this in yesterday and just used my photos as a reference. So I really like this spread, it's quite playful. And then we flew to Portugal for the retreat. So this was the second day because the first day was travelling. We had quite a delayed plane, so it's quite a long day with an early start to get to the airport. So this was the next day before we headed to the studio. So just 10 minutes, this was from the balcony. I'm not really a fan of this. I do like some of these graphic shapes here from the arches. Just kind of warming up, getting used to some of the newer colours that I took with me, like this pink. Usually I use a salmon pink, but TJ and I worked on the material list together, so there are a few new colours to me that I've been playing with. One of our icebreaker tasks was to draw each other without looking, so TJ and I did one too. This is TJ's very unflattering drawing of me. She did it continuous line as well, but it's a nice way to warm up and to just play with our supplies, which is what all of this is as well. So we were really focusing on play. We took a lot of supplies with us for people to try and to have a go with. Also talking about colour theory, so we'll come on to that in the other sketchbook, but yeah, just playing with the supplies. I didn't do much of this because I was going around talking about the supplies and just chatting with everyone, so not much in here for me. I did swatch the gelatos though when I came back just to fill a bit of this spread. But also on this morning we did do some colour theory, so lots and lots of colour mixing and swatching, which is really helpful to do. You know that I do that a lot with my new supplies, and I did a little bit more of it here with the gouache. Because we couldn't take everything, it was really helpful to take our colours and mix them up and see what we could get. So a quick little colour wheel here with the colours that I mixed up. And also in here, again, taking 3 primaries and mixing those with different whites and a darker colour, just to see how the different ratios of colour made such a difference. So I found this really helpful, and I think the students did too. We did quite a lot on limited colour palettes and mixing things up, so there's none of that in my sketchbook because I really wanted to go around to the students and help them out. So there's not a huge amount of art in here that I did on the retreat because I was focusing on teaching rather than drawing. But this is on the first day where we had maybe half an hour between doing the wine tasting and having our dinner. It was a very full-on trip in terms of activities. So this day we did teaching, we also did olive oil tasting, wine tasting, and this was just a little bit of peace in the afternoon where we were all sort of painting around or in the studio just chilling. So I decided to draw this, or paint this even, with gouache. It was really nice, very playful and loose. I haven't added on that many colour pencils on top because, again, I was trying to be quick before we then headed to dinner, but I really like this pink line that I've got here, and that echoes the pink in the foreground. I couldn't find my sky blue near colour at the time, so I just used this purple here. There was a lot of purple flowers, and purple isn't something I use often, but I really like it in this context. So, pretty quick one, and I do really like adding little notes as well onto my spreads. Then the next day, again, from the hotel, so TJ and I met on the balconies before we then headed to breakfast, only for about 10 minutes on the first couple of days. I really liked this building with the blue. That was very Portuguese, so having the blue against the white. And I really like this. I love the sky. I'm happy with that. It was quite cloudy on these mornings, so although I usually make my skies just blue, I did add in a little bit of sort of lilac tone here, which I think works nicely. And I'm really glad I added on the power lines here as well. So a pretty simple one. It didn't take very long, but I really like this view. Okay, then we went into the village. So let me show you the other sketchbook, because the village of Montserrat is on a hill and we did some painting demos at the top. And I've got those in here. So this is the one that I talked through my process for. It was about simplifying things into panels, which is one of my favourite things to do. And you can see here how I've simplified things down further. And this was just drawn plein air with the students behind me watching. So really, really fun. I added on my near colour pops, which I always love to do. And it was just really nice to just talk through what I was doing and really explain how to do it before they then did it themselves. So there were so many gorgeous panel spreads in people's sketchbooks. And TJ did a separate demo on how to sort of merge things together in the landscape instead of separating them into panels. So it was really nice to have both of us there to show different ideas and perspectives. Then we did sort of split up and it did start to rain, unfortunately. Not that you'd know it because I changed the sky, but it was quite changeable that day. So I did this one just after lunch, after we had lunch in the restaurant. And then we kind of all split up to explore the village. And there were 4 of us who ran into the art gallery there. That was also a church. I need to label this up actually, but we just did some studies inside. I did this lovely arch before we then headed back outside. And then I did this later on in the hotel just with this sort of really, really pretty orangey leaf thing that I found whilst walking back to my room. And in the afternoon, we did some collaborative working. So this is me and Gosha. So Gosha did the base layer and then I added on the details on top. And it really helps us to be playful if we let go of the results. And this was fantastic for me because it meant I used totally different colours than I normally would. Because of the colours that Gosha had put down, it meant I went a little bit more wild with the lines that I put on top. So that was really, really fun. I love some of these textures, so much texture in Gosha's work. So I found that really wonderful to work with her. And yeah, just a spread that wouldn't normally happen, but I really, really love. This one, I didn't put anything on here. So again, just moving around our sketchbooks and letting other people work in them. So this is Jackie and TJ. I think Jackie did the base layer and TJ did the details, or the other way around, I'm not sure. But you can see there's lots of texture here. TJ had her soft pastels, and then there's some really bright colours here. There's also a lot of rain texture because it did rain when we were working outside, which was a shame, but again, it does really work well with the texture and something that I wouldn't normally have in my sketchbook, so some really fond memories here. Then we were waiting for the bus, so this was just in the car park outside of the village, so I did this really quick 10-minute sketch just with my coloured pencils whilst we were waiting. Okay, so this was on the day where we split up. We had 14 students in total. We split it up into 7 and 7, so I taught the first half in the morning and the second half in the afternoon, and vice versa with TJ. I want to show you the demos that I did. This was in the morning, so you can see I did some thumbnails on the left, and it was really about simplifying complicated scenes. So I really broke it down into my shapes. Obviously, I'm not going to talk too much about that because this was for the retreat, for the students there, but I really like this one, simplifying things into foreground, middle ground, and background, and then using our shapes, colour and tone to really break it up and make it a lot more simple than it might look at first. And then in the afternoon, I did the same lesson with the other students, but with a slightly different view. Again, using those different tones to show depth and really simplifying it out, as well as playing with mark making for some of these pattern textures. So that was really, really fun. So I did paint on that day and then didn't really do much else because I was going around to everyone, making sure they understood everything and helping them out, which was really, really rewarding for me. I absolutely love that part of the retreat. Just really connecting with everyone, seeing when things clicked and suggesting ideas and seeing how that evolved in their work. That was the last Portugal one I did in that sketchbook. I did do this in 10 minutes just at the end, again before dinner. I really love this pop of jade green. I don't love this bush here, I think that needs a bit of work, but I really like this alongside the tiny little pops of the sort of saffron colour for the village on the hill. So really happy with this area. I probably would like crop it somehow. But yeah, really fun. And then the next day we went to the rug factory. So we did do a tour there, which was really nice. Quite a few people bought rugs and bags and purses and things. This was Jackie's rug, which I was able to draw some really lovely patterns. Really, really interesting. And so this page was drawn at the rug factory again whilst we were waiting for the van to give us a lift back to the studio. This was some packaging that TJ gave me from her bag because she bought a bag whilst there. She gave me the packaging so I could just sort of tear it up a little bit. She knows I love collage and doing these sort of journal spreads. So I've added that in here. Here's my very bad drawing of it that I did in the factory. And then this I filled in yesterday using one of my photos. It's not often that I do draw people, but I really wanted to include her here. The artisans, it's a very small factory. I think there were only 8 people who work there, and then these were the artisans working on the looms. They're all very manual, they're all wooden looms, very old-fashioned in terms of how they do it, which was fascinating to watch. So really glad I added this in here, and I really like this spread as a whole. And then on the last day before our travel day, we did do a garden tour. So Gerald, who's a landscape architect, has done a lot of work in the garden, and so has Sophia, and it was just gorgeous to walk through their grounds with them. So I actually took my sketchbook with me and a couple of brush pens and coloured pencils. So this is a very limited colour palette. You can see I've got an olive green Tombow, I think this is the 553, and then a more lavender one. And then for a few more of the details, we've got the anthraquinoid pink luminance, the dark thylacine green luminance, and then the Chinese green neocolour. So very limited, but really nice to do. And I was walking and drawing and stopping and drawing. So these were very, very quick, but I love this spread. I think it worked out really, really nicely. It was nice to draw and walk as we went. And yeah, just taking little elements and snapshots of the garden just to capture this moment. So really pleased with this spread. Then we had an afternoon where we were all pretty exhausted at this point. We were cramming in a lot into this trip. So we had sort of a free play afternoon, and again, I sat with a group and we drew together. This was very much inspired by Jackie's work. So as I said, we were taking inspiration from everyone, really finding so much inspiration and ideas from everybody's work. So this colour combo is not my usual, but I loved it in Jackie's sketchbook, so I wanted to try it in mine. This is with the vermilion neocolour. Again, not a colour I use often, but really liked it here with this sort of corally pink and this cool toned green, which I'd mixed up from playing around with my colours earlier. So I really like this one. I was sat drawing with Kiki, Fenna and Sandy, and then Aline came, sat with us, and so did Flossie. And I also did this one actually before I get onto that bit. This was just with gouache and just really nice chatting with everyone and painting. Very peaceful, very much needed after such a busy 6 days. Really like this, again adding on my little pops of colours and adding in my journaling as well. So this is very much more like my travel sketchbooks that I do in the studio, but this was actually done plein air, and this feels very in sync to how I normally would work. So that was really, really nice to be able to see that come together, because usually I find my plein air work is quite different. But this feels very me, and I'm really happy with this spread. And then this was when we all worked together. So we've got Jackie, Kiki, Flossie and Aline, and I did the base layer. And we just kept passing it around. We all did that with our sketchbooks. This was the one in my sketchbook. It's really fun to see all the different mark makings. You can tell it's not mine, which I absolutely love, because we all have such unique voices that we can see when other people are in this sketchbook. So it was just really fun to pass it around, see what other people added. And this definitely feels like Sophia and Montserrat with the studio here. And yeah, just really, really playful. I love that we did this together, and I know that we all really enjoyed the collaboration. And that's it for what I made in Portugal. I do come back to Portugal, but we are now jumping to Leap Beach. TJ came back to my house after we flew home from Portugal, and I took us to the beach. Again, beautiful weather, really nice to just sit and paint with TJ. So I did this one with gouache, again some Neocolor, and maybe a bit of coloured pencil here, but mostly gouache and Neocolor. This gorgeous sea, really happy with this, really love the vibrancy and the colour here. I also did this one using the gelatos again, a new supply for me, but really trying to change the colours. I wanted to go a bit more abstract, and I really like some of the textures here. This does feel quite different, but it was really fun to do that, and also feeling so inspired from the retreat. I also did this one in my Strathmore, which I really, really love. You can see how bright and vibrant this is. I love the pop of purple over here for the road. And this was, again, changing the view and altering it and abstracting it slightly to make it work on my page. But I really love this. I'm really happy with some of the mark making here and the movement as well in the water. I really like this back here. So definitely something I think I might develop and move on. So I feel like I've done this one, but I can see it working in lots of different ways. So I might do this again, but in maybe slightly different colours, maybe a slightly different crop. But yeah, really pleased with this one. Again, with the gouache, some gelatos and some Inktense as well. I did use the Darren Inktense blocks with me here, especially for this blue. So yeah, really pleased with this one. So that was it for Leap Beach. So this was using the photos from Portugal. So this wasn't done in Portugal, but I took like 400 photos and videos. So I've got plenty of references, and we're going to be using some of those next month on Patreon as well, just to reference. But really love this spread. It feels very summery and hopeful, spring-like. I love the colours. It just feels very warming and calm. This was referenced from a photo that Fenna took. So this was me painting this view right here. I didn't realise Fenna was taking a photo behind, but I'm really glad she sent that to me. So this is me painting. I love the light in this one. And then I just added on my swatches down here, a bit of journaling, and then this was just a view from the walk from the hotel to the studio. Some amazing, super old olive trees that I wanted to capture, and then just a gorgeous landscape and lots of wildflowers. So really pleased with this one. Using a sort of hotter pink than I normally do, but really like that. That was definitely a TJ influence. That one is the hot pink Prismacolor. And then I also did this one. This was with an orange base layer, which I used acrylic gouache for, and then I went on top with traditional gouache and also a Posca mop pen. So this one, which you might have seen in a haul, again, I'll link the haul up here, but this was really, really helpful to do some of these clouds in the sky. It was feeling a bit muddy, but that really, really helped to brighten it up. So I really like this. Love the movement in the hills. Really happy with that base layer. I think that works really well for Portugal. And then highlighting some of the details on the houses with the windows and the roofs, and then keeping it really simple with some of the white marks here, just to suggest the flowers that were on this sort of valley whilst we were looking down. So this is the same view that I was doing the panel demo for, but I decided to just do this full spread, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. And then the very last spread I've got to show you is this one. So on one of the evenings, just before we went out for dinner in the village, 4 of us decided to go into the pool. So these three, Becca, Emily and Beth, were in the pool already, shrieking happily, or so I thought. So I decided to jump in and join them. It was very, very cold, but we were determined to use our bathing suits that we took with us. And as Becca said, when are we ever going to get a view like this with a pool? So I'm really, really glad we did it. It was such a lovely memory, really, really special. So Aline took this photo for us. She was on one of the sun lounges behind us. So I used that as a reference. So that was really, really lovely to have this photo that I could then paint from, because I don't think I would have managed this without that reference photo. And then I'm really happy with this bit and like the bottom half of the image. I just used gouache and coloured pencils, so pretty simple for this one. And then a touch of this yellow along here with the Nia colour. Then I just added this little diagram here of who's who and quite a lot of journaling here. But really, really happy with this one. And as I said, I've got loads of other photos to reference, so I can definitely continue filling this sketchbook. As I said, there's still plenty to go, but maybe I'll keep it and do another retreat in the rest of the sketchbook. I'm not sure yet. As I said, I do have plenty of photos to reference, so I do like the idea of keeping Portugal in this one. But I hope you found that interesting. I hope you've enjoyed seeing all of the art that I created during my retreat. As I said, super duper inspiring, really, really happy that I did it and learned a lot from it as a teacher as well. So hope you enjoyed. Do let me know what you think down below in the comments, and a big thank you for watching. I also want to shout out my lovely patrons. Without their support, I wouldn't be able to make these YouTube videos every week. So a big thank you to them, and I will see you all next Sunday in my new YouTube video. See you later.